Hello and welcome to Florida Politics Now. I'm Cody Butler with Jacob Murphy at WJHG-TV, Robert Bradfield at WCJB, and Jessica Foster at WJHG, where we talk all things politics. And this week was a big week here in Florida. The legislature had a special session to pass a new congressional map from that was presented from the governor's office this week. So let's take a look where things are.
For the first time, as redistricting laws across the country are changing.
Show the bill passes.
State lawmakers quickly passed new congressional boundaries in this week's special session.
I will not allow you to destroy our democracy.
Despite protests from Democrats.
We're really upset by this. You know, we just went through redistricting recently, have been told to follow the law. We fought against those bad maps then.
While Florida lawmakers debated, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled on the Louisiana case dealing with the Voting Rights Act, the case Governor Ron DeSantis cited as the reason for calling the special session. The court's Wednesday decision weakens protections against discrimination in redistricting, saying states can't rely too heavily on race when redrawing districts.
In the state of Florida, we have an evolving legal landscape. And we have evidence that the Florida Supreme Court will recede from precedents. They just did that this last summer.
The governor's office told lawmakers race wasn't used to draw Florida's new map. Political data was, despite Florida's Fair Districts Amendment banning political gerrymandering.
This map is based on a strong and viable interpretation of both the Florida and the United States Constitution.
And I believe that we've applied the data to the law, and I believe that these maps bear out.
A Supreme Court decision today doesn't change that at all. States have the purview to make partisan gerrymandering illegal in their states. That is what we did. That is what the people of Florida did. And we know, again, from poll after poll, that the people of Florida, that's what they still want.
Last month, an Emerson poll found 56% of Florida voters think mid-decade redistricting is a bad idea. Republican Manatee County Commissioner George Cruz also posted a letter urging lawmakers to vote no, writing this map is not in the best interest of our residents, whom you represent, and later posting stand up for the people, not the party. And this story's not over yet. Several lawsuits are ready to be filed as soon as the bill is signed, both on the state and federal levels. At the state capitol, I'm Cody Butler reporting.
And the governor says that he will sign it as soon as he gets it, and so far it's still not on his desk just yet.
And Cody, are there any concerns that there could be legal issues arising from this still?
Yeah, every time there's a redistricting process, they end up in court, and this one's going to be no different, especially with the Fair Districts Amendment coming into question with this map.
Cody, did the play-by-play, because I know when we first thought of the special session, it was going to be maybe a week long. It ended up being just a couple days. So when you reflect on how it went blow by blow, is it kind of how you thought it was going to go, or were there some surprises from your perspective about how it all played out?
The speed is what was the surprising part. The governor had delayed this a week and had added AI Bill of Rights and the medical freedom, which deals with easing some vaccine requirements in the state that are written in state statute. And on day one, Speaker Perez said that they didn't have any bills in the House. They won't be taking them up. Now, there's some question whether or not that was by design or just how the cards played out in the House this time around, because both those bills passed in the Senate, and the Senate did pass the AI Bill of Rights on Tuesday. And another thing that was kind of surprising was how little time. The kind of redistricting process takes a while. They usually go around the state, get feedback, and this was released to Fox News first on Monday and then sent to the legislature. And that was the first time that anyone saw the map, and it was passed within 72 hours of it being made public.
We've mentioned this before, Cody, but obviously the Democrats, we saw Angie Nixon there with her bullhorn representing Jacksonville, North Florida there. One of the lawmakers, we saw Fentrice too talk about it, but Democrats also really probably didn't have much maneuvering, correct? And then also When we're looking at the timeline here, this is May 1st, however long the governor has to sign it, but we're also facing an August primary. So is it fair to say, too, that the governor's office was kind of also looking at a timeline, at least a narrow time, to get this done? So really there couldn't be that much of a court fight?
That's part of it, because we do have the qualifying period. They did push back congressional qualifying to accommodate for this special session. Democrats don't have the leverage that they do in Texas with the super majority of both chambers, because the Republicans didn't need the Democrats really to pass this or to have a quorum. So it's not like the Democrats couldn't flee the state or anything like that. So the most that they could do is what Representative Nixon does, was get out their bullhorn and try to be as just loud and disruptive as they could. Representative Nixon took a bit farther than what everyone else did in the Senate. They had every Democrat spoke against it, and I believe Jason Pizzo also spoke against it, Senator Pizzo, the NPA in the Senate. So, I mean, that they didn't really have the leverage to do anything. So they knew going in that this was kind of going to be what happened. The best chance that they had was polling in Indiana and having enough Republicans vote against this. There were only a handful. I think there was only one in the House that voted against this. There were a few more in the Senate that voted no. So, I mean, this has been kind of, the Democrats really didn't have a chance in winning this fight, especially this go around.
I want to also just quickly follow up. You mentioned that these maps were given to Fox News before the lawmakers saw it. Is there a consensus on the Democratic side that this was trying to undermine them? But what's your sense maybe from the lawmakers that say, hey, we who represent the state were not even given this map first, but instead was sent to national media? Is there a consensus that the governor did wrong there?
Yeah, definitely. That's one thing that a lot of members said, especially, and this is unusual for Governor DeSantis to air grievances on Fox News before going to other either media or the legislature. But they say giving it to Fox News shows the partisan intent, which goes against the Fair Districts, the Fair Districts Amendment. So that's kind of what they're going to be pointing at in their challenges up ahead, on showing that the partisan nature of this map and the fact that it was color coded on Fox News. No one's really sure who did the color coding, if that was the governor's office or Fox News. Some people are saying it's Fox that did that. Some are saying that it was the governor's office. So the fact that there was a leaked color-coded map on Fox News shows partisan intent, especially is what many of these Democrats are arguing.
And Cody, when you look at the new map compared to the previous one, where do you see the most differences? What parts of the state?
Down the peninsula is where the most of the differences are. They were trying to really break up there was one that the governor said, I think it was District 20 down in the Fort Lauderdale area, was illegal because it was kind of based heavily on race. And so because it was a slightly weird shape. And so he tried to kind of make sure that race wasn't a factor in this map. And so kind of around there, Orlando and Tampa were the biggest shakeups. The compactness was kind of lost in this because now we have a district that is larger than the state of Connecticut. It goes from Parkland and Naples. So opposite ends of the peninsula are in the same district now that weren't before. St. Petersburg, downtown St. Petersburg was broken up into 4 different districts that before had been one district. And so those are kind of really kind of some of the key areas where the map was changed based on the current map. There were districts, especially in the Panhandle, that weren't touched. I think there were maybe 5 districts that weren't touched in the across the state.
And Cody, I know we have to throw in a break here soon, and you may not have the answer to this, but the District 20 that you referenced, which was introduced in 2020, correct? When the governor was still in the governor's mansion, or was that a holdover from years before that too? Do you know? Because I know he's targeting it now, but he was in office when it was created in 2020.
Well, remember the last map was created in 22, and that one was came from the governor's office because he vetoed the one that the legislature had done and called it back for a special session and presented a map. So this year kind of followed a similar process. And the biggest contention on that map was District 5, which had before gone from Jacksonville across the northern part of the state past Tallahassee. And now that is kind of centered around Jacksonville, and District 2 kind of moved over to include the Big Bend area. So the previous map came from the governor's office. And so it also raises some questions. If he didn't do it right the first time, then why is he doing this at all? So it's definitely kind of going to be under a lot of scrutiny going forward too. All right, and when we come back, we'll take a look at what's next in the redistricting process. Hello and welcome back to Florida Politics Now. We are talking about the redistricting effort that was done this week. The governor still hasn't signed it just yet, despite it being widely unpopular. The legislature did go ahead and pass it. Let's take a look at some of the protesting side of that.
Widely unpopular congressional map proposed by Governor Ron DeSantis. House Speaker Daniel Perez says that's all they're doing this week, as state lawmakers begin the first of several special sessions.
What do you want?
Hundreds of people from across Florida were outside urging lawmakers to keep the congressional districts how they are.
They continue to peddle, different reasons and rationales for why they should move forward on this.
Florida is just the latest state to redraw congressional districts, starting with Texas, setting a chain reaction of similar moves in other states, leading to the voter approval last week of Virginia's new map. Equal Ground's Genesis Robinson's reminding lawmakers Florida's Fair District Amendment bans drawing maps for political gain.
This is the type of political gamesmanship that they were trying to stop when they passed the Fair District Amendments.
The map from Governor Ron DeSantis breaks up several districts held by Democrats around Tampa, Orlando, and South Florida. Party Chair Nikki Fried says it makes Republicans more vulnerable.
So what they have done is not only pissed off the people of our state, but they've also given us an opportunity to not only protect the 8 that are currently in the Democratic coalition, but also to pick up 2 to 3 more.
Republicans maintain they haven't looked at politics with these maps.
We haven't reviewed political performance of any of the districts. You will not see a color-coded map presented in committee.
Representative Jeanette Persons-Mullica is carrying the new map in the House. She says the new map is fair.
Within our prerogative and our discretion to take up mid-district or mid-cycle redistricting, and in light of changing jurisprudence in the state of Florida, we feel confident in moving forward. We've reviewed the map.
Redistricting isn't the only issue included in this special session.
So the bill passes.
The Senate passed the same AI Bill of Rights that passed during the regular session, but Speaker Daniel Perez says the lower chamber won't be taking it up this week.
There were no bills filed on these policies prior to the start of this special session. Consequently, we will not be taking up those issues.
Lawmakers are expected to vote on the map on Wednesday and then head home until the next special session. In Tallahassee, I'm Cody Butler reporting.
And lawsuits are already expected to be filed as soon as the governor signs it. So that's just a matter of when he signs it is when we will see those lawsuits.
So what happens next? I mean, once he signs it, are we expecting literally within 5 minutes a lawsuit being filed? I mean, if it's already drafted, I guess all they have to do, I guess the opposing side is submit it. But is there also a fear maybe among the GOP that a judge could also come in and say, similarly, it was what happened in Virginia, that these maps are not going to be enforceable?
Well, once the governor signs it, those are the maps likely going forward for this election. That's why the lawsuits are being drafted right now, and all they'll have to do is hit submit to get those in the state and federal courts. And so they are looking at everyone knows that there were going to be legal challenges on this map. There were on the other one. That process took about a couple years to play out. So we're looking at possibly another couple years to for this map to play out. So in the court. So it's going to be a long drawn out process once the lawsuits are filed. And so it's just going to be wait and see what happens. We know the Supreme Court, the governor has appointed, I believe, all but one member of the Supreme Court. And so people are hopeful that the court will look at the law, not necessarily the politics behind this. But you never know these days of which way the courts are going to go.
And Cody, I know you've been following this closely. What sense do you have from the general public about how they feel about it? Are they even paying attention to what's going on?
Most likely not. Those that aren't really thrilled about this, and we're seeing this on both sides. We've heard from members of Congress saying don't do this because it's putting their seats at risk, even though they might be thinking they're protecting them, they could be putting them at risk. And so the general public, the Manatee County commissioners were saying don't do this, urging lawmakers to vote no. They ended up voting yes in the Manatee County area. And so, and polls were showing that this is widely unpopular. 56% of the voters that were polled in the Emerson poll last month said that this was a bad idea, and they went ahead and went with it as well. And we're seeing this in other states. Indiana is the example of really where it was so unpopular that the Republican supermajority voted no. And this is a widely unpopular thing right now. A lot of people think that they should do the normal process, wait for the census, because they're using the same population data this year that they used for the 22 map, which was after the 2020 census. And so they were still using, everyone says that census was bad data, but they were still using the same bad data to draw these maps.
And Cody, just to get some clarity here, the idea that it could put some GOP members at risk, it's that by trying to absorb those blue districts currently, they have to water down some of the red strongholds in other parts of the state. Is that what Nikki Fried is referencing when she says she thinks in a year like this one where Democrats are expecting a blue wave, in the fall that they can actually use this to their advantage?
Yeah, you had to make a Democratic district more Republican. You have to take Republican voters out of one district and put them in another. So many of these districts are diluted. That's what Nikki Fried was saying. You can't just go by on voter registration numbers right now. The president's approval rating is continuing to go down right now. You have a lot of NPA voters that have been siding with Democrats, especially in these special elections. And that's how they've been able to flip many seats in the special elections. So that's kind of the Democrats' hope on this and having this backfire on Republicans. You're seeing the same thing happen in Texas, where it's unpopular there and people are challenging and they're showing that they've flipped some seats over there in the special elections as well. So that's kind of why they think that this is, because you had to take some Republican voters and put them in other districts so that you can get more Republicans in that. So it's going to be an interesting election year for sure, because I mean, Democrats historically have done well in special elections. It's on the regular scheduled elections where they have a little bit of trouble, but Florida is expecting more money on the national level to come into the state this cycle. So we'll see exactly what happens. And you do have Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader in DC, saying that they're going to put resources in Florida if they went forward with redistricting again. They did. All right, and that's all the time we have for this week's Florida Politics Now. We'll see you again next week.